Good morning. Thank you very much, City of Ypres, Mayors for Peace, to give me the possibility to speak here about the tragedy which happened to Hamburg in 1943. Let me begin with speaking a little bit about my daughter. When she was 3 years old, my wife, me and my daughter, we went to a wonderful fun fair, which was organized by an artist, the Austrian artist André Heller, very poetic, done in the style of 1900. So my daughter was so delighted, you just can't imagine. And unfortunately, the security measures had also been nostalgic. That means it was something like 1900, the security, and there had been floodlight close to the ground, and my daughter was not very well covered, and my daughter touched this and burned her forefinger. It was terrible. So we went home at once. She held the finger out of the window to cool it a bit. At home, she held the finger for more than an hour in ice water to cool it. She cried and cried. And when I think about the firestorm, I think how much it hurts to burn one finger. Sorry. When I think about the firestorm, I also think how I loved to play in the rubble, in the ruins, when I was a little boy. I was born in 42. That means when the firestorm was in Hamburg, I was about 11 months old. We had not been, had not problem with this because we lived a bit about 15 kilometers away. There was a little bombing, but close to our house, but that's it. But after the war, about when I was 7, 8 years old, 49, 50 year, I loved to play in the rubble. There had been a lot of it, and it was it's so interesting for boys because you find pots you can drum on, or you find water taps or wooden bars. We loved wooden bars. We could make fire with it. We loved to make fire, and we put everything in it. And also these little yellow clumps we found. There had been some yellow clumps, we didn't know what it is. Threw it in the fire, it burned like hell. And it was stinking. That was interesting. Wonderfully stinking. It was soft, like warm wax. And then we, all the time when we made a fire, at the end, we put the fire out. And you know how little boys are. It's like, you know this mannequin? Famous? So we did it like that. And it worked for the woods, but it didn't work for these little clumps. They stopped burning, suddenly they started again. Very interesting. So we took a shovel and onto this burning clump, and we went to the Ulster, the river in Hamburg. We threw it in. It went on burning. It went on burning for a certain time, even under the water. And with bubbles coming out of it. White smoke, stinking smoke, and bubbling with a wonderful noise. We really loved it. We did this for days. Yeah. Later on, when I was already young adult, around 20 years old, I told my mother what we did. She had no idea. And she told me it was phosphorus. And she spoke about the Hamburg nights of bombing, where people burned like torches. And they jumped into the canal and went on burning, because the body had been touched with his phosphor. And yeah, there was no help. The firestorm was the climax of the so-called Operation Gomorrah, named after the famous Bible's text. Then the Lord rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. In our case of Hamburg, the Lord was Arthur Harris, Air Chief Marshal of Great Britain's Royal Air Force, who wanted to totally destroy Hamburg with a series of extreme air raids. The main difference was that with him, it rained phosphorus instead of brimstone. A top-secret letter from Harris to the commanders of his 6 bomber groups helps to understand his intentions. I cite, "The importance of Hamburg, the second biggest city in Germany with a population of 1.5 million, is well known and need not to be especially emphasized. The total destruction of this city would promote immense results through the reduction of the industrial capacity on the enemy's war machine. This would, together with the effect on the German morale, which will be felt throughout the entire land, play a very important role in the shortening of the war." Today, we know that the war hadn't been shortened, and it went on until 45. So, what did it help? The British had been very well prepared by lessons learned from Germany for attacking Hamburg, who already had bombed Rotterdam, London, Warsaw, and most successfully, Coventry. Goebbels was very proud of it. "The reports from Coventry are horrendous," he wrote. "An entire city literally wiped out. The English are no longer pretending. All they can do now is wail, but they asked for it." The British Air Command didn't wail at all, but studied the German methods of destroying Coventry and transferred their findings to the city of Lübeck. The bombing of Lübeck then became very successful and became the blueprint for Hamburg. The Operation Gomorrah consisted of 4 attacks. The first one on 24 July 43, the last 3rd of August. Each attack began with an innovative device named Windows. It consisted of metallized paper strips. Each bundle had 2,200 strips, made of coarse black paper with aluminium foil stuck on the one side. British scientists had theorized that such metallized strips floating in the air would swamp German radar with false echoes. It worked perfectly. Already in the first raid, more than 15 million strips dropped over Hamburg. The radar was totally blinded, and the flak had no idea in which direction to fire. They didn't see any plane. The main attack happened in the night from 27 to 28 July 43. Shortly before midnight, 787 aircraft started to bomb. 3 hours later, they had unloaded 2,230 explosive bombs and 325,000 incendiary bombs over the city. The unusually dry and warm weather and the concentration of the bombing in one area created a vortex and whirling updraft of superheated air, culminating in a 300-meter high tornado of fire, with winds up to 240 kilometers per hour, temperatures of 800 degrees Celsius, incinerating more than 21 square kilometers of the city. Asphalt streets burst into flame, and fuel oil from damaged and destroyed ships barges and storage tank spilled into the water of the canals and the harbor, causing them to ignite as well. The majority of deaths attributed to Operation Gomorrah occurred on this night. The estimates are about 40,000 people. This happened, as I said, in July '43. But some fires still burned until October. The British had not been alone with the Gomorrah child. The Americans saw and bombed during the day, especially the industry and the port, while the British took the nights and the civilians. On the whole, Operation Gomorrah killed 40,600 people, left 37,000 wounded, and caused some 1 million German civilians to flee the city. Over 250,000 homes and houses were destroyed. That's about half of the quantity which existed. The industrial losses were severe. Hamburg never recovered to full production. Figures given by German sources indicate that 183 large factories were destroyed out of 524 and 4,118 smaller factories out of 9,068. Local transport systems were completely disrupted and did not return to normal for some time. Hamburg was hit by air raids another 69 times before the end of World War II. In total, the RAF dropped 22,580 tons of bombs on Hamburg. But these are just figures. The truth is in the testimonies of the witnesses. For example, Klaus Wilken, he reports, close to Berliner Tor, I saw everywhere figures lying on the street. I thought that these are dressmakers' dummies. But suddenly I recognized that they are all human beings, petrified in the strangest positions. And I don't know if they had been adults or children, as they only had a length of about 1 meter. Or Henny Clark. She experienced the firestorm in Hamburg, one of the preferred targets of the Allies. Hamburg had a very high population density. The ordinary people lived there, port workers, sailors, craftsmen, families with low income and many children, a vibrant district full of pubs, cafes, dancing places with a wonderful community life. And politically, mostly on the left, just like in the other districts which the Allies mostly attacked. It's so strange. The British bombed their potential allies in the fight against Hitler. In this night, Henny Clark is in a shelter on the other side of the street, opposite of her apartment. She writes, the light was already no longer burning. The candles as emergency lighting did not get enough oxygen, and it became unbearably hot. My little baby was covered by a wet woolen blanket in its pram, so that it would not suffocate. Thank God we still had a jet of water. I don't know why, but suddenly the devil possessed me. I wanted to go into our house one more time. Perhaps I could still get some things out, photographs, such things. But as I stood in the corridor, the ceiling was already crackling, and I wanted to go to my father's desk in the living room. But there I saw only fire. The blazing and burning drapes flew in the room, The window panes burst, and there was a hissing and crashing all around me. I couldn't manage the few steps to the desk, which stood at the window. My legs felt paralyzed. While dashing out of the apartment, I hadn't even grabbed an article out of the wardrobe. I ran back to the shelter as fast as possible. The streets were already burning. The firestorm was now raging through all the streets. When I reached the shelter door, I suddenly saw a neighbor who took his bed cover and wanted out. None of us could stop him. We saw him still, but then only as a living torch, carried by the firestorm, flying through the air. Our situation in the shelter was almost helpless. We were surrounded by fire and would probably die from hypothermia or carbon monoxide. And what to do? It was a fact that behind the house was the Kammer. But how could we reach there? Or to the other side, to the street named Stadtdeich, and then to the upper Elbe? Should we go there? Well, this was, at this moment, a mirage. And then at the last moment, a neighbor came with the idea to attempt a life-saving breakout through the wall, which was half stone. My man remembered a pointed pickaxe that stood in a corner. And that was our deliverance. The men hammered out chunks of the wall, and we tested to see if the pram would pass through, and it did. We came out at Stadtdeich, but into a thundering, blazing hell. The streets were burning, the trees were burning, and the tops of them were bent right down to the street. Burning horses out of the nearby hauling business ran past us. The air was burning. Simply everything was burning. The hurricane was so strong that we could scarcely breathe. And I still know today that I screamed, "Don't fall down," at my mother. Our goal was the harbor shed at the Elbe River, a distance of some 100 meters. We reached it and waited there till the morning. On the following day, the sky was black until late in the evening. Hamburg was covered by a cloud of black smoke to a height of 7 kilometers. Klaus Mann, the son of Thomas Mann, said at the end of these bombing nights, "Hamburg, as I knew it, will never exist again. The city will certainly be rebuilt, but its face and atmosphere will fundamentally be changed." Sometimes I think about his words when I go by car direction Autobahn. Then I have to pass through Hamburg. What do I see? Soulless office buildings, warehouses, shipping agencies, dull and ugly factories all over. The streets only made for cars. No bed, no family, no children, no small old streets, no houses to live. All gone. Together with wonderful humor, the songs, the slang, the joy, the powerful way of living of Hamburg's port workers. When I pass through Hamburg, I often think of the burnt finger of my daughter, of myself playing with fire and phosphorus and the devils. And since I prepared this speech, I also think of a woman with a suitcase. It was the daughter of a witness who wrote down what her mother had told her. I said, "My mother was 15 years old. The day after the firestorm, she fled out of the hell of her district and went on a streetcar. She recalls a lady singing a lullaby and rocking a suitcase. The lady looked at my mom and asked if she would like to see her children. My mom said nothing. The lady opened the suitcase to show the charred remains of her 2 children. Why? Why does such things happen? Why do human beings this to human beings? I don't know. I have no answer to that. No answer. I only know one thing. We shall never give up struggling for peace and the total abolition